Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's program on burnout and fortitude. I am Dr. Joy, an expert burnout and fortitude coach. In today's program, we are going to be focusing on burnout signs. So basically, the question is, what are the common signs and symptoms of burnout? Now, in our previous video, we were able to give you some definitions of what burnout is, and most important, the 5 different stages of burnout. In today's video, we are going to focus on the common signs and symptoms of burnout. And then in the next coming video, it will be talking about the factors contributing to burnout in your workplace. So when we talk about the common signs and symptoms of burnout, know that burnout starts gradually. Let's say the first step, you found a fantastic job or you enrolled in a fantastic program. So the first step, you have this compulsion to prove yourself. Then it goes to the second step, which is you start working harder and harder. The third step, you start neglecting your needs. Fourth step, you go into a kind of displacement of conflicts. The fifth step goes into revision of values, which goes into denial of emerging problems. Then the seventh step, you go into withdrawal. The eighth step, you start having a kind of odd behavioral changes. The ninth step, you go into a kind of depersonalization, which then leads to a kind of inner emptiness. This inner emptiness will progress into the 11th step, depression. And this subsequently ends up in burnout syndrome. So let's take a look at what are those common signs and symptoms of burnout. This is important so that when you start feeling such signs and symptoms, you know the proactive steps that you need to take. So remember that it starts, for instance, with a feeling of lack of reward or recognition, or you start thinking unclear or overloaded job expectations, you start kind of having a feeling of lack of control, you see a clear disbalance or work-life imbalance, and then you start kind of isolating yourself or going into a kind of lack of social support. So there are a lot of different signs. But however, what are those basic common signs and symptoms? That's what we're going to focus. So burnout can manifest in various ways, including physical, emotional, and behavioral symptoms. And we're going to really focus on these 3. Now, when we talk about physical symptoms, what are we talking about? So I'm going to be giving you some examples. So we have, for instance, chronic fatigue and exhaustion. You have frequent headaches or muscle pain. You start having changes in sleep patterns. Some people develop insomnia, or some people have excessive sleep. Then you start having a kind of weakened immune system, which ultimately leads to frequent illness and unhappy feeling. Okay, so these are some of the physical symptoms that you need to start watching out. Then we go into the second most common sign of symptom, and that is the emotional symptoms. So when we talk about emotional symptoms, what are we talking about? It starts with a kind of feelings of failure and self-doubt. So remember, you started with an excitement to do a job of your dream. Gradually, when you start having this feeling of failure and self-doubt, and then you start having feelings of helplessness, you feel like you're trapped, and you start thinking you're defeated. When you start having detachment, feeling alone in this world, you start having feeling of loss of motivation, and then increasingly you become negative, cynical, with a very strong negative outlook in life. There is a clear decreased satisfaction and sense of accomplishments. And even when you get something done good, you do not feel any more satisfaction. So these are some of the signs that you need to watch out for. These are the emotional symptoms that you are going towards burnout. Worries, loneliness, and anxiety that overshoots to really make you feel decrease in dissatisfaction, and then you no longer feel happy when you accomplish something good. Now, what is the third step or the third sign and symptom? We are going to be talking about behavioral symptoms. So what do I mean by behavioral symptoms? I'll give examples. So you start having withdrawal from responsibilities. You start isolating yourself from other people. Start having a kind of shame complex when there is really no need or no real need for this shame complex. You start isolating yourself. You start procrastinating and taking longer to get things done. Things that you normally do very quickly, you start procrastinating and taking longer time to do it. One of the major ones is people start using food as a kind of way to cope. You start overeating or eating the wrong stuff. Some people even start taking drugs, start abusing alcohol, all in a way to cope and to suppress the depressive or the unhappy symptoms. Then you start taking out your frustrations on others. Sometimes you see men beating up their wives or wives beating up their children or vice versa. What is important is to know that the frustrations are increasing, and then you need to take it out either using food, drug, alcohol, or on people, your loved ones, people around you. Then you start skipping work or even coming late, leaving early, or making some excuses. So these are just to give you some signs and symptoms that you need to watch out for, so that when you start noticing these signs, then it's time to really seek help and make sure that you do not allow it to go into full-blown burnout syndrome. Okay? Now, in order to conclude this part, it is very important for us to first detect the problem and actually speak with yourself. Is this really happening? And if you're sure these signs are real and not just some 1 or 2 odd days, if it's sure that it's really happening, then it's important that you take proactive steps to prevent this and to manage burnout. Reach out and speak to someone. It is very important that you do it on time, because this will definitely increase your quality of life. So, in general, understanding the definition of burnout, knowing the different stages, the 5 different stages, and the signs and symptoms. Also, knowing the factors that contribute to burnout is very critical to recognize this burnout syndrome and to address it effectively. Now by identifying these signs and symptoms and the different stages, you are now able to take proactive steps to prevent it, to manage it well, so that you are promoting a healthier version of you and a more joyful and productive work environment. Just know that anything you go through, you are able to grow through it and to overcome it if you ask for proper help, and then you're able to work towards it. So this is the end of this video on signs and symptoms of burnout. I want to thank you all for listening, and then if you have time, please look at our website, and if you have other questions, please drop it on the comment section. Thank you, and see you in the next program.